My name is Julia Foster. I'm 34, an architect by trade, and a mother first, always. My son, Oliver, is 5. He believes napkins are capes and that forks can double as microphones, and sometimes I think he might be right. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway that Saturday afternoon, the Seattle sky had already decided it would drizzle, then stop, then drizzle again, like it couldn't pick a mood. The porch light was on, glowing faintly, signaling the house was ready for company, at least from the outside. Oliver fidgeted beside me in the passenger seat, backpack bouncing, crayons peeking from a side pocket. He hummed an indecipherable tune. "Mom, I brought the cards," he said, gripping the little paper rectangles he had colored for everyone. Grandma, Grandpa, Lena, Leo, Stephen. His list included everyone, even Stephen Garcia, my boyfriend, who would join us later with his own past, including his ex-girlfriend, Clara, somewhere in the background of his life. I smiled at Oliver's earnestness. "That's wonderful, Oliver. They're going to love them." We stepped onto the porch. Mom opened the door with a practiced warmth, though her eyes flickered quickly past Oliver and me, landing on me first. Dad lingered in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with the grill that smoked like a signal flare. Lena arrived moments later, sunglasses perched on her nose, carrying an empty pie tin as though it were a fashion accessory. Leo showed up with a speaker and a six-pack, immediately depositing the beer in the freezer, just as he liked it, frosty and untouchable. Oliver clutched his handmade cards. "This is for you, Grandma," he said, placing one carefully on the edge of her plate. "Your hair is happy." Mom smiled without looking directly. "That's nice, Oliver." She kept stirring the potato salad like it was the only thing in the world worth attention. I lifted Oliver onto my hip and whispered, "Ready to set the table?" He saluted with a fork. "I want to be fork manager." "You're hired," I said. He clanged his fork on a plate accidentally, and the room flinched. Lena rolled her eyes. Leo groaned, and Mom sighed. But I didn't correct him. He was 5. That's what mattered. When it came time for the group photo, Leo took charge as usual. "Pretty people in front," he joked, shoving Lena to the middle. "Mom, chin up. Dad, suck it in. Julia, lift the little guy." I hoisted Oliver, who wrapped his tiny arms around my neck and whispered, "I'm tall now." Leo snapped 3 photos in quick succession. "Perfect," he said, already scrolling on his phone. We ate. Dad told an old story about almost meeting a famous athlete. Lena complained about traffic like it had personally wronged her. Mom handed out paper plates and judgments equally. I watched Oliver feed a chip to the neighbor's dog and apologized to the chip, as though manners could fix anything. Later, when Leo posted the pictures to the family group chat captioned "Family Vibes," I scrolled through them with Oliver at my side. There we were, Mom, Dad, Lena, Leo, in perfect symmetry, and Oliver? Cropped out. Just a small elbow ghosting the side like a mistake. He blinked at the screen. "Mom, was I bad?" The words landed like a hammer. My throat tightened. I forced a smile. "You were perfect. They just messed up." Mom called from the kitchen. "Julia, don't make a thing out of nothing. Leo knows how to make photos look nice." I stared at the untouched, handmade cards at each plate. The little paper people sat, waiting to be noticed. No one signed them. No one moved them. I didn't cry. I stacked the plates, zipped up the tote, and packed leftovers that no one would thank us for. On the drive home, Oliver fell asleep with one fork clutched like a medal he had earned. At bedtime, he asked, "Am I still fork manager tomorrow?" "Absolutely," I said. I stood in the kitchen after he slept, phone in hand, thinking about 4 perfect adults arranged in a perfect square and the small elbow erased like a ghost. I opened a folder on my laptop labeled House/Papers, another labeled Family, and another inside that labeled Just in Case. I didn't cry. I did something else. This had started years ago when I was 21, working nights at a grocery store while taking community college classes during the day. Dad's transmission died. Mom called first. "Julia, your father is too proud to ask. We need a bridge until payday." I had $400 in my account. I sent $250 and lived on instant noodles for 2 weeks. Dad never mentioned it again, except once, quietly. "Family looks out." After college, I became an architect. The requests became sleeker. Overdue bills for Leo, boutique inventory for Lena, HOA fees, security systems. Mom's voice always sounded like love if you didn't listen closely. "You're so responsible, Julia. You understand how to move money." And I did. I always did. Then Oliver was born. Everything sharpened. My ex and I had split, but we co-parented. I split my life between late-night architectural revisions and mornings with a son who believed in the miraculous power of forks. I opened a 529 plan and a high-yield savings account labeled Oliver. I built a fence around it, a real fence, locked. Yet, even with all my vigilance, small betrayals kept appearing. Lena's boutique overspending, Leo's lost phone lines, Mom forwarding HOA emails like they were secret weapons. And the first time Oliver was edited out of a family picture, I didn't notice. I assumed he was hidden behind Dad's shoulder. But then there were more, and it was no longer accidental. It was deliberate. By the end of the day, I knew I could no longer ignore it. I began documenting everything: screenshots, receipts, notes, building the first bricks of the fence I had promised Oliver I would maintain. Because he deserved to be seen, in every photo, every memory, every frame. And that fence, I realized, would soon extend to every aspect of my life. After that barbecue, the weight of invisible hands pressing on my life felt heavier than ever. Every dollar I'd sent, every favor I'd granted, every time I had smoothed over a problem for Lena, Leo, or even my parents, it all pressed against me, reminding me that invisibility was a family talent I hadn't inherited but had been forced to adopt. It began subtly. Lena needed inventory for her boutique, a pop-up that had barely materialized into a reality. She sent me a PDF in bubblegum pink fonts and asked me to cover the first order. I did. Then she called it a loan, then a favor again. Leo, in the meantime, invested recklessly in crypto. He'd message me in bursts of panic. "Julia, can you lend me enough to hold through the dip?" I'd say no, and he'd call me a buzzkill. Mom would intervene, her voice sweet and urgent. "Leo's fragile. Can you reconsider?" "It's easier to handle the storm when you hold the umbrella," I reminded myself. And I did. Every spreadsheet, every account, every payment became part of a ledger I kept secretly, obsessively, like a diary of survival. Then came Oliver's birthday. I had saved carefully, scoured the catalogs, and found the Lego spaceship with the tiny green alien he'd begged for months. I hid it at my parents' house so he could open it surrounded by cheering family. A week before the party, I discovered the box opened in Lena's car, half the pieces in a makeup bag. "Oops," she said casually. "I needed a gift for a client's kid and didn't have time." I stared at her. That was for Oliver. Her eyes flickered like I had been unreasonable. "He'll be fine. He doesn't need more plastic. You should thank me for decluttering." And in that moment, the facade of family obligation cracked just a little. A week later, Mom asked me to co-sign a lease for Lena's storefront. "It's a great deal. Just your signature makes it official." "No," I said quietly, firmly. She hesitated as though I'd disconnected the line. Then she tried again. "Julia, don't be silly. It's family. We'll all benefit. Lena can sell your little projects, too." I repeated the word that had begun to taste like freedom. No. I started checking my accounts at 2 a.m., like a raccoon rifling through trash cans, convinced that any imbalance might signal another betrayal. I checked Oliver's 529, twice, sometimes 3 times a day. I told myself I would know if anything went wrong. I built walls that were digital, financial, and emotional all at once. 2 days before the next family gathering, Leo pinged the group chat. "We need to talk budgets as a family." He attached a meme of a piggy bank, as though charm could soften the blow. Lena added a note. "Also, Julia still owes me for the pop-up table rental. I had already paid." No one responded. Saturday came. I arrived with Oliver, backpack stuffed with crayons and cards, heart bracing for the usual chaos. The cropping in photos wasn't accidental. It was a choice, a clean edge, a tidy square. It said aloud what I had been refusing to admit. They liked me for what I paid for, and the rest, my son, my emotions, was clutter. Oliver tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, was I bad?" I bent down, held his tiny shoulders. "You were perfect," I said softly. "They just forgot how to see you." I could feel my jaw set. I began documenting everything anew: screenshots, receipts, text threads, payment histories. Every yes, every favor, every just this once loan, logged and time-stamped. Even small interactions became proof. Lena's boutique overspending, Leo's forgotten promises, Mom forwarding HOA emails like they were arrows aimed at my conscience. And somewhere in all of it, the shadow of Stephen's ex, Clara, lingered. Nothing overt, nothing spoken. But every subtle reference, every whisper, every comparison made in Stephen's family's presence reminded me that vigilance was a skill I could not afford to lose. I realized the fence I had built around Oliver's future, the 529, the savings account, even the little rules about fork management, needed to extend to me. If I didn't protect myself, I couldn't protect him. The small betrayals, the subtle erasures, and the unpaid favors all converged into a single understanding. I could no longer be the family's default solution, not when the one I loved most, the one who deserved to be seen, was Oliver. That night, I sat on my floor, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I began cataloging every transaction, every family interaction, every slight that had ever cut through my attempts at grace. It was meticulous, exhausting work, but in that effort, I felt a strange clarity. The storm of obligation and erasure was still raging outside, but here, in this quiet, I could build a map, a plan, a shield. And Oliver, asleep upstairs, dreamed of capes and fork microphones, unaware that his mother was constructing a world where he would always be visible. Sunday morning, I dressed Oliver in his favorite shark shirt. He insisted on packing his fork manager kit, a plastic fork, a napkin, and 2 stickers. We drove to my parents' house in silence, the kind that isn't awkward but deliberate, filled with anticipation. I carried a wrapped frame under my arm, heavy with the weight of truth. Mom opened the door, slippers and all, and blinked. "You didn't say you were coming by." "I brought something," I said evenly. Oliver clutched my hand and peeked at the package. We walked to the kitchen. I placed the frame on the table, peeled off the tape, and revealed the collage. 3 photos from the barbecue, side by side, each showing the empty space where Oliver had been cropped out. A tiny elbow circled in red, like a watermark of erasure. Beneath it, simple words. "This is what you did." Mom's hands froze in midair. The frame slipped. Glass shattered against the tile, sharp and final. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded. "What's wrong?" "Is this how you see my son?" I said, voice calm but firm. Leo wandered in, rubbing his eyes. "Dude, you're so dramatic." Lena appeared behind him, hair perfect, eyes narrowing. "Oh my God, is that the picture? Are you serious?" Oliver stood behind my leg, quiet but alert. I placed my phone on the table and opened the family group chat. "I'm going to say this once," I said. "I'm done. Here's why. Here's what changes now." Mom's face hardened. "Don't threaten your family in my kitchen." "I'm not threatening. I'm informing," I said. I tapped on the first screenshot, the Lego set receipt, then the photo of Lena's car with the opened box. "You stole my son's birthday present," I said directly to Lena. Her eyes rolled. "It was a misunderstanding," she muttered. "Next," I said. Pay stubs, bank transfers, receipts, spreadsheets, everything. Leo, Lena, Mom, Dad, every line item and date, every favor and debt meticulously tracked. I turned to Dad. "You asked me to be the adult. I did. And while I did it, all of you treated my son like a smudge to crop out." Leo shrugged. "The photos look better centered." I felt the calm that comes when you finally name something true. "Here's what changes," I said. Mom and Dad, I love you, but I will not be your backup wallet. If you need help, ask once. I will decide based on Oliver's needs first. Lena, I will not co-sign anything for you ever. If my name appears on a lease, I will report fraud immediately. Leo, I am not lending you money for crypto, Vegas, sneakers, or anything else. Mom's face hardened further. "You're abandoning your family." "I'm protecting my son," I said, pointing at the cracked frame. "You made it clear how you see him." Lena snorted. "So what? You're going to invoice us?" "No," I said. "I'm going to stop, and I'm going to document." I opened one last screenshot. The draft lease page Mom had texted me with a signature that looked like mine. "Don't do this again," I said quietly. "I'm not playing." Dad finally spoke. Julia, it's not that serious." "It's exactly that serious," I said, looking at Oliver. He studied me like a map, his small brow furrowed. "We're leaving," I said. Oliver waved. "Bye, Grandma. Bye, Grandpa." He added quietly, "Be careful." The kind of child he was, always cautious but curious. We walked to the car. My hands were steady on the wheel. My phone buzzed immediately with texts. Mom, Lena, Leo, all outrage, all blame. I muted them. I made pancakes with Oliver. He put a sticker on my forehead that said helper and grinned. By the afternoon, I had changed everything. Cell plan updated, auto pays canceled, Venmo privacy locked, a new checking account created labeled house/Oli, and folders for vital documents stored safely. I was my own HR department now. Mom emailed, like we lived in an office. Really, Julia? You're overreacting. The pictures were an artistic choice. We just need your support. I replied, I will support you in ways that do not hurt my son or my finances. That means no more auto pays, no co-signing, no loans. We can have dinner next week if you can be kind to Oliver. If you can't, we won't come. Lena texted from a different number. So you're seriously sticking us with the bills? Your bills? Not mine, I wrote back. Leo left a voice memo full of sarcasm. Congrats on being a martyr. When you need us, don't call. I let it all go to voicemail. I spent the afternoon in quiet control, pulling up budgets, printing statements, and labeling folders boundaries, like a woman finally declaring her authority over her own life. Outside, Oliver played with the neighbor's dog. We laughed together, fully present, fully seen, and I realized that clarity is different from victory. I hadn't broken the glass. I had simply held it up. The truth did the rest. The days after the confrontation were quieter than I expected, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was charged, full of potential eruptions. My parents, Lena and Leo, had all retreated into predictable patterns. Mom sent tentative emails, Lena tried to charm her way through texts, and Leo fumed and blocked messages I refused to open. I ignored it all. Instead, I focused on Oliver, on the life I had carefully protected. Mornings were pancakes and laughter. Afternoons were the park and kite flying. Evenings were Lego spaceships and bedtime stories. Every small ritual reinforced our world. A world where he was seen, where he mattered, where boundaries existed not to punish others, but to protect him. The financial freedom I carved out became a rhythm. I set strict rules. No money leaves my accounts the same day someone asks. Bills for my parents, only if they aligned with Oliver's needs. Lena's boutique, not my problem. Leo's fragile investments, he could figure that out himself. Every yes I'd once given freely was now measured, deliberate. And yet the subtle family manipulations continued. Mom sent flowers with notes that sounded like apologies, but carried obligations. For Oliver, of course. Don't worry about me. Lena tried Instagram messaging, passive-aggressive in the way only ex-partners could be subtly toxic. Just a reminder, you still owe me for the display units. Oliver will understand, right? Even Stephen noticed the tension when he came over. His hand would brush mine in the kitchen, a quiet reassurance. He knew of Clara's lingering presence in his family's orbit, her name whispered in the background, her subtle criticisms folded into jokes. But he didn't intervene. Instead, he supported, standing beside me silently when the past tried to seep into the present. His calm became a counterweight to the storm. I learned quickly that boundaries were like muscles. The more you exercise them, the stronger they became. The first time Lena tried to guilt me over co-signing another minor loan, I didn't hesitate. No, I said. I'm not your safety net. I'm Oliver's. Mom called, her voice trembling between anger and concern. You're so cold, Julia. You're abandoning your family. I'm prioritizing the one I'm responsible for, I said. Oliver. A pause. Then, I guess I understand. Not fully, but it was a crack in the wall. Even Leo, after a week of silent resentment, sent a small message. I see your point. Not happy, but I see it. At home, Oliver thrived. He still asked, Am I still fork manager tomorrow? And I said yes, always yes. He counted forks, napkins, and stickers, as though he were guarding a treasure, unaware that he was teaching me a different kind of strength. The power to see, to notice, to protect what truly matters. The fence I had built was invisible to everyone else, but invincible for us. The 529, the savings account, the safe deposit box, the meticulously cataloged spreadsheets, all of it remained untouched. And in the quiet evenings, Stephen would sit beside me, hand on my knee, watching Oliver play. We didn't talk much about Clara. We didn't need to. Presence mattered more than words. Every time she surfaced in conversation, it was a reminder that our world, our little family unit, was ours to protect. I began to live differently. I no longer cropped my memories, my life, or myself to fit the expectations of others. I photographed Oliver without hesitation, printed the images, and displayed them proudly. I let him take up space, and I took up space with him. The family group chat continued to ping, often with complaints, sometimes with attempts at reconciliation. I muted it. I replied only when necessary, clearly, and always through the lens of boundaries. Mom's messages that resembled apologies became just words. They carried no weight because the actions they demanded were no longer mine to bear. Lena tried her old charm and subtle manipulations, and I no longer fell for them. Leo's grudges became irrelevant to my life. It was liberation, slow and deliberate, built brick by brick with small acts of care and firm, unyielding no's. I realized something profound. Love wasn't about paying every bill, solving every problem, or mediating every minor conflict. Love was holding a frame, printing the truth, and backing away from a fire you didn't start. And Oliver, my little shark-shirted boy with fork microphones and napkin capes, deserved to grow in a world where he was always visible, always prioritized, and always loved without compromise.